to Hostility Morning Show. I'm your host, John, joined here today by...
Nathan.
Steven.
Matthew.
Well, Steven, I hope you had a good little vacation. Did you come back burnt in any way, shape, or form?
No, actually.
Your hard drive's not clicking or anything like that, so you're like mentally you're refreshed and ready to go?
Oh, no, it was doing that before.
Have you defragged it since you got back?
Am I supposed to do that?
I think so.
Oh,
At least like once a month, proper maintenance.
okay. I thought just turn it off for a little bit, and then when I turned it back on, it'd be fixed. Is that not how? No? Okay.
Nathan,
Yes.
what are we talking about today?
We are talking phones. More precisely, smartphones, as they used to be called. And we're going to, I was reading some headlines recently and kind of sent me back down memory lane. And so I have a few questions, some things that I watched, et cetera, and just kind of curious to see if anyone has any experience with these. Did anyone present ever utilize one of the OG smartphones running Windows Mobile?
I
No.
did not personally run one, but I did use one from associates like numerous times.
So I remember sitting in a break room talking with one of our senior developers, and he had an HTC, forgetting the actual designation, but it was one of those, it was Windows Mobile. I think it was running Windows Mobile 6, and it had a slide out keyboard, and it had a stylus, and the OS itself was was built for stylus. That thing was the coolest thing. I could not justify that cost. Looking back, I want to say that it was super expensive, and I think it was like $500.
For that time period was
That
pretty
was
expensive.
because you also have to remember that time period. That was the true era of the phablet. Like I remember for those Windows phones, like the first phablet I saw, and it may have been an HTC device, but it was huge. It was like either a 9 or 11-inch screen.
Wow.
Like it was
Yeah.
massive.
This was Windows 8 era, right? This was
Yes, because
kind of the advent of
it-
Windows
it-
8.
it-
in
it-
format,
It was pre-Windows. It was Windows 7. So the Windows,
but the tail
Correct.
end.
It was
tail
it
end,
was a tail end of Windows 7. I think it preluded into 8 before 8.1 was all this because at that time you had, again, my memory serves right, because you had Windows 7, its last service pack, Windows phones coming out because it did the tiles first, and that's what led to
the tile
Microsoft
screen for,
unifying that ecosystem altogether. Because you also had the Zune at that time, which didn't use, I can't remember if it used tiles, but it was something very similar to that kind of layout. It was very square layout.
It was
for its
Microsoft.
UI.
That time period was Microsoft attempting to make a, like you said, a unified ecosystem of UI that no matter what Microsoft device you used, it looked and operated similar.
Yep.
But they were leaning towards the mobile UI format as opposed to the traditional Windows desktop.
Well, they
format.
were going after the tablet crowd,
Mhm.
because that was the big new hotness of that age. Was you had smartphones that were really starting to come into their own. Then you had tablets, which their own separate thing, which was kind of that hybrid, because you had the e-readers beforehand from like the Kindles that really kind of, I'm not going to say like kickstarted it, but really made it popular. But it was that era where you had multiple different devices for different purposes, and Microsoft was trying to be that one to take, okay, here's all the type of like products you can have. Let's get a unified UI through all of them. So like, hey, it doesn't matter if you're on your tablet, your phone, your computer, all of it's going to pretty much look and act very similar with each other,
And
which
we,
isn't a bad idea.
and we see
concept.
how well that worked out.
It was a good idea that was very poorly executed.
Yeah. Well, it was
Yeah.
Microsoft who tried to execute it, so it tracks.
Microsoft is great at executing things.
Well, yes, let's say they
I
have
thought that
some.
was Google.
They have some
That too.
at least back then, they had some interesting ideas. I'm not going to say now. Honestly, I think they have gone into a pretty heavy slump now. But back then, because you had like the Windows 7 Media Center, which was awesome. You obviously had the development of the Windows Phone, which I thought was interesting at the time. I definitely figured they trying to claw that market share because they were going directly doing the similar style of marketing what Samsung was doing, which was trying to go head to head with Apple. They should have did their own thing. They were their own little corner and tried to carve out a really solid user base first and then expand. I think honestly it could have been a legitimate competitor to Android at that time because Android was, I'm not going to say it was absolutely massive, but it was definitely quickly growing.
So did anyone ever use Windows Phone?
I have one in a box somewhere. I used it long enough to get Minecraft on it.
Okay.
Back when you could do that. That was about it.
Yeah.
So ironically, in my opinion, Windows Phone was kind of the last of the great Nokias.
Yes.
Was
yes.
when
Yeah.
they partnered with
Oh,
Microsoft.
that's right. They were Nokias.
I do. Yeah. Because I remember.
No, not the original ones were not Nokias. It was kind of like the last ones were
Yeah.
Nokias.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
it was
final
it was the last
holdouts.
push, but because I remember like because back then didn't even have like a cell phone plan. It was one of those pay as you goes, and I know Microsoft was one of the official partners of TrackPhone, which is who I was using at that time, and they had one of those Nokia Windows phones that I honestly thought was really intriguing, but I went with that HTC instead, all that stuff.
See, I 100% agree that so iPhone was never going to be beaten by either Windows Phone or Android simply because that was Apple's. And Apple had too much of a user base at the time for it to be destroyed. Now, Microsoft had the opportunity, I think, to beat them from dominating the market. They could have done that. However, to John's point, they tried to do what Samsung did, and they should have just been their own thing. And if they had just opened up the file system, honestly,
Mhm.
I think it would have won because what what the younger kids don't realize is that
What a file is.
well that too.
Yeah,
But Android originally had an open file system.
yes, it did. It was fairly open, even like during the initial Google acquisition days, if I remember correctly. Um,
Yes.
it was very friendly to that, and again, that was part of the big push around the jailbreaking of all the iPhones and all that was to get some of that customization that you had on the Android side. Uh, if Microsoft would have did kind of not fully open, but would have been like, okay, we're gonna have a closed ecosystem here, but here's what you can do with it. It's like, hey, you want this to seamlessly interact with your computer. All right, you have obviously the standard filing system here. You can drag and drop your data across, no problem. Your pictures, your documents, all that stuff would just natively work. And then it's obviously based tiles, but if you have more options for themes and doing a lot of the standard Windows 7 and initial Windows 8 customizations to it, I think if you would have built your entire marketing scheme behind that, I think it would have done a lot better than
Well,
trying to be a catch-all
and
than what
two,
it was doing.
if they had not tried to go head to head with Apple, and if they had focused more, I think that if they had played their cards right and done some of that with the actual function of it, but also with the marketing and marketed it more as a business device, then I think that they could have, because at the time this was still, I believe, relevant. Um, they could have been the ones to knock off BlackBerry and kind of
Yeah,
edge into the
into
business
that
space
market space, yeah.
and be the de facto business mobile device,
Mhm.
whereas they goofed around and tried
Well,
to own the
'cause
consumer space, which they were never going to do. And now iPhone is also the de facto business device
does
for the vast
does
majority of
anyone know what
organizations.
kernel was running on those Windows phones?
I don't.
No clue.
To
Okay.
back up a little bit, what do you guys mean by an open file system?
You could get to the file system without any sort of hackery.
Yeah.
You can do that with you can still do that with Android.
Yeah, but
Like
no,
it didn't have a file explorer?
No, so
Like-
you could get into, and I forget exactly how, 'cause I didn't have an
you could
Android.
modify the bootloader and things of that nature, which that was the big thing for Android back then is, yeah, I mean, you can run custom firmware without having to jailbreak the device. It just natively did it. Now, on the Windows device, understand from the liability side of Microsoft's, and they wouldn't want to do that, but they could still allow like the core reasons of why people were modifying bootloaders, things of that nature was yes to run unsigned apps. Completely understand that. Microsoft's not going to just officially support that. from their standpoint, from the corporate end, it would be very risky. But from the user side, okay, what's the other thing they wanted to do? They wanted to be able to customize their device and make it their own. Microsoft easily could have allowed that level of functionality.
Sure.
They own the firmware. They can definitely do that. I mean, remember Windows 7 back
You
in
just
those
go to the
days?
store and download themes. If
Anyway,
y'all could only see John's face right now.
anyway, yeah. Because I mean, again, you can still technically modify bootloaders on Android devices, but it's becoming more and more complicated and difficult, especially like on your major brands of, like, I would say specifically Samsung. I know has really put in a lot of steps and effort to not allow people to do that. So
If you're talking about the ability to install custom firmware, then that's Microsoft didn't support that. And Android, it depends on the manufacturer.
Yeah.
But that's like
But
anything
back in
with
the day,
Android.
it was much easier than it is now.
Correct.
Yeah, if you're talking about just being able to access the file system, you can do that. The Google Files app is not the greatest as far as giving it, because they try to do the Apple route where they hide the fact that there's this thing called a file
Mhm.
from you, and they try to give you these these tabs and folders and quotation marks and stuff like that, categories and stuff like that
Yeah.
to automatically sort your files, and it's really
Hate
annoying.
category.
But you can just get a third party app that lets
Yeah.
you do all that without having to go through any sort of hackery with it.
But you did. But
to do that.
originally, you didn't have to do that. You didn't need a third party
Yeah,
app.
on
It
the-
was just all just there.
Oh, true. On the Windows side of things, if anything, I do think it's really sad that when they killed off Windows Phone, it was right as Windows 10 for phones was going to be a thing.
Mhm.
Because one of the things that they were pushing for, as far as the business market goes, was the ability to take your phone. I think it was like a HTC at the time, and plug it into like USB-C dock or something
Yeah.
like that, and then it turns it into a desktop.
Yeah.
If anything, if they were to bring that back, because now you've got Windows for ARM, so they've solved that problem.
Mhm.
They're working on, for the most part, fixing some of the UI issues with other devices without sacrificing the desktop experience when it comes to things like the handheld game consoles. Big thing now. So once they get that piece ironed out, they really could come back with, hey, the next Surface phone, that's not an Android phone anymore. It is a Windows phone again,
Mhm.
but it's running like an actual usable Windows that people would want to use.
The one thing that Microsoft would need to do, though, in this case, and this is the one thing, it's the hardest thing in the world for Microsoft to do, is do not manufacture the hardware yourself. If anybody from Microsoft listening, stop building hardware. For the love of God, you suck at it. It's terrible. Just name a good, I mean, rock solid, reliable, good, long lifespan. Name one Microsoft piece of hardware that falls into that category.
The Zune?
After the Zune.
Xbox controller.
Not a game
Well,
console.
No,
no,
Xbox
dang.
controller.
Well, I was
You're
Not
putting
a-
too many
nothing to
yeah,
do
you
with
put too many
gaming.
caveats. I was gonna say the original Xbox minus the clock capacitor. That thing is a solid
Okay,
machine.
we were just talking about business
I
devices,
was
which
gonna
would
say, mine's
encompass
still
mobile
ticking.
phones, tablets, and laptops.
Okay.
and- yeah.
Okay.
And
Actually,
those categories,
No.
mobile phones, tablets, laptops. Name one thing that Microsoft themselves has manufactured that was good and reliable.
Well,
The
if you
Surfaces?
no, the Surfaces suck.
no.
Early
like the first
The
2 or 3 generations of the Surface, just the Surface,
the Surface
those
RTs.
weren't as bad.
I like the RTs because it locked you in to tablet mode,
Yeah.
and you were more limited to just the Microsoft Store. It was an actual tablet. It was fine.
But the Surface books, the Surface
And the standard Surface that allows you to go back to the desktop and all those ones, like the
Yeah,
Surface books. Is it
terrible.
the Surface Book Pro or whatever that one was that had the really weird hinge and all that
I
stuff?
was trying to think. No, that was
That was the Surface.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
the first iteration I think of the
those
Surface
those
book.
ones that they put the GPU
They're
in the dock that is the keyboard and all
terrible.
that. Yeah, especially those ones were notorious for the batteries getting too hot and expanding, so it actually like left either a large yellow blotch in the middle of your screen, or actually would push the frame out,
Or it
or-
would have a big yellow border around the edge of the screen.
or it was
Nice.
notorious for the TPM module in it failing. And when that happened, there was basically no way to recover your data off the
Nice.
device.
Also, the separation of the screen and the base was a mechanical latch that was controlled by an electric, like solenoid kind of thing, and it would fail.
Well, it wasn't not even just that. It was something that was controlled in software in
yeah, that's right. It
Windows.
was software
That's
controlled.
awesome.
Yeah, and
See,
so that would
I
bork.
don't even use Windows as an operating system. Like, is it a surprise that I know nothing about the hardware side of things when it comes
I'm
to
shocked. I
Windows
colored me shocked.
desktop?
Yeah.
But I would consider getting a Windows phone that let me turn it into a dock.
Yeah.
Because like you
And
can
that's
do that
all
with
I'm
Android
Yeah,
too.
that's all I'm saying is just
Yeah,
The problem
Samsung-
is that most
Windows can-
Samsung does. Most
do they still do that? Because I
they
haven't seen it in
do.
a while.
Most and Android is actually baking in. So I think with 14 or 15, they really started adding support for that. The problem is that most manufacturers don't the USB 3 or the USB C on their phones is USB 2.
Yeah.
It's only for charging. It's
Correct.
not for data transfer, which you need if you want to run a display
Ridiculous,
and stuff
yeah.
like that on it. So like my phone, for example, it's got USB-C. It's got the quick charging and all that, but it doesn't have the data transfer. Which again,
Is that a tier of phone thing, or is that?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so
because I know like mine.
I haven't ever spent more than $200 on a phone. So to preface this whole conversation,
Fair enough,
I'm
fair
not
enough.
a budget. I am a budget person. I'm not a bougie phone person.
You're not getting the flagship.
No, absolutely not. I'll get the flagship features 3 years after they've
But
been
to be
introduced.
fair to your argument, but at the same time, like that, I think that there could have been some exceptions and understandings made several years ago. At a different point in time with smart. But I think right now in 2025, it is unacceptable for any smartphone at any price point to not have the current USB generation.
the fact that there are
3.1
different
3.1 Gen
completely
1 at least.
wildly different standards.
Yeah.
for
Okay, yeah,
a
we're-
single port. I still
We're
think is the
we're
dumbest
not
idea.
gonna get into that is a whole thing.
Yeah.
I do have an article about that if you guys want to read about USB standards and lose your mind of like how many versions of USB 3 there is because it's stupid.
It's more like USB 300.
I remember when I finally moved from a micro USB phone to a USB-C phone, and I thought that was like a huge deal. and
Yeah,
all that.
But does anyone remember mini USB?
Yes.
Yes,
Hated that.
that was the PS3 controller.
I actually preferred mini
Yep.
USB
I
over
mean, it's
micro
fine for
USB.
charging.
No, I actually had the biggest problem with those ones because those ports were the ones notorious not for separating from the board, but the actual retention mechanism would wear out so
getting low,
quick,
yeah.
and the cable would always fall out or you get poor connection.
That's what a little bit
All
of
of them.
electrical tape is for.
just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, my Micro B was the one that was notorious.
Micro
for
B was
just snapping
horrendous.
off.
Yeah, it was a dumb design. You just
Yeah.
widened like USB, and
You guys must have been like really hard on your electronics because I've never snapped
Well,
a
it's
cable.
because
Well, no,
the-
it's
like
it
that.
was the
it's-
standard that Micro B was the one. I mean, Mini B they started to, but Micro B was when they really started to standardize. Like everything was starting to become rechargeable,
Mhm.
and that was the standard of port layout. That was the charging point for charging port for just all the things
For like
that were
15 years,
rechargeable. Yeah, and so it became ubiquitous in that sense. But what came with it were all the weaknesses of the format itself. And so, I mean, we're talking about like it's not just phones, but any kind of like I had like an external hard drive enclosure. And won't even get started about the USB 3.0, the extended micro B connector that like gave you the high speed. That whole won't even go there.
Oh yeah.
Or
the wide one.
like I said, we're
Just-
not getting
but yeah.
into
so
the
that's
millions of
but that's
versions
like
of
USB-C
USB
replacing
3.
that was
walkie-talkies
great.
had
Yes.
micro B.
But we're in the same
just
thing
all
now
kinds
with
of stuff.
USB-C because there's so
Yeah.
many different.
At least it's the same
certifications
port
of it.
though.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's that is the one. It's the blessing and the curse is that
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
the same port. As far as to bring it back to phones a little bit, the worst cables in my opinion were the
The
30
proprietary
pin,
cable.
the 30-pin charging cables for Apple devices.
Oh man.
Back in the even the Lightning ones, whatever like biodegradable crap that they wrap the wires in.
Oh, you're talking
Oh,
about the
yeah.
that
cords?
just
Oh, yeah.
disintegrate
Oh, no,
within
that
120
era-
days of you getting them was
that-
just awful.
It wasn't just those charging cords.
that era of charging cables
like,
for
rubber,
Apple
plastic,
everything.
stuff.
Yeah,
Period.
Whatever. Yeah.
Because the MacBook chargers of that
Yes.
era
Yeah,
were the
same
same
thing.
thing.
Same
Yes.
And the client that we had that had was an all Mac environment. They had all 2010
yeah.
to 2012 Mac, like Jesus, the
Well, and
absolute tattered cables that I saw that those people were
dude,
using was obscene.
even the wired Apple mice, because like they
Yeah.
use that same plastic
It's
on
yeah.
on the sides and the little trackball.
Yeah, around
It
that
all
time
the same
period, they
color.
used the same sleeving for all their different cables, and it got dirty really fast. It just fell apart really fast. The joint, the whatever they used to, where the joint where it actually meets the plastic bit on one end or the other.
It wasn't a joint. It was just a connector. It was a connection point. It didn't.
But
It
yeah,
didn't bend
it
at
didn't
all.
last a month. I mean, it separated immediately. It's crazy. They have to their credit, they improved that quite a bit.
The
At this
current
point.
braided cables are really nice.
Well,
So hard pivot.
I do like braided cable. Just to
Agreed.
jump in.
why do we have a time? Why do we have a time period here on the dock?
Ignore that. Move on.
So
Okay.
so hard pivot.
This is like since 2007 when the iPhone was introduced.
Oh.
That's just until
Yeah.
now.
Does anybody miss the days of the stylus
Flip
and
phone? Yes.
stylus driven design?
Oh, the stylus, man.
No.
I can take it or leave it.
It's one of those. It's like, because I got asked that question from when I was having to get or I was looking at getting another smartphone, and then I had no choice but to get another one. I got asked by a couple people, like, why didn't I go with, one of the Samsung Ultra devices that you can use their Smart Pen or whatever their stylus that they call. And it's just, I don't care for it. I don't my phone is usually in my hand, like one hand operation day to day. I haven't felt the need of like, yeah, I need to be a little more like precise with what I'm doing on screen. It's not like back in the days, and this is my nostalgia speaking here, of like the Palm Pilots, where the touchscreens were so bad back then because it didn't have, well, it had a digitizer, but it was that thin layer of plastic right above the digitizer. So there was like an actual air gap between it where you try to use a finger, it wouldn't register properly anyways. You had to have it. These days, I mean, these touchscreens are so good. I don't see a need of where I would want to have a stylus in my hand to use it.
I can only speak for myself, and I think my aversion to it comes from it's kind of twofold. Because I'm from the time period of growing up, getting first people might getting first cell phones in general, and then like the first your the first 5-6 years of just our experience with a cell phone were flip phones, and it was just the 9 key not 9 key whatever layout, your standard phone layout of
10
keys.
It was 10 key.
10
Yeah.
key, thank you. And texting was
A pain.
It was T9.
T9
T9 was great.
Thank you, T9.
No, T9 was not a pain. It was amazing because especially back in that era where,
Oh, yeah.
where I was having
It
to
was
text
small enough that you could get your finger on it, and you
It-
could just get really fast. Like once
Well,
you
and I
learn-
got really good. Like, definitely, I paid attention in school all the time, but I
Sure.
could text on my phone
See,
without
I
ever
could
looking
never
on
do
it.
that. To be fair, I that was one thing I could never do the no look, the have it
Yeah.
underneath and do the thing and be
You,
accurate.
you put your thumb on the number 5,
Sure.
the little nubbin is, and that's you just
No,
go
I
from
get
there.
I get that. I also didn't talk. Never mind. It has many people to talk to, and it's just, but
But that wasn't very popular
so I
either.
didn't
I
get a
just
lot of
talked.
practice. Okay, but anyway, so that was just my introduction. That was early, like smartphones didn't come along till a good bit, or just phones that either had, because again, I went from T9 flip phones to a BlackBerry, which had a full keyboard, hard keys, and that was a QWERTY keyboard, so that was just like typing on a computer. And then I had the BlackBerry Torch, which had the same thing, but then it also introduced like kind of having a screen on the or having a keyboard on the screen. So it was a while before I had a smartphone, had a Samsung that was a smartphone like we have today. And also on the other end of that, I also came to generation. We used pen and paper for stuff. We wrote stuff down. Just if you were taking, like, you made lists on a little notepad or a little, like, that was a normal thing in my teenage and early 20s years still. And so I just got used to that. That's the natural thing. Like when I think I need to take a note for something, brain automatically goes to, where's a piece of paper, where's my pen, can't find my pen, or oh, there's the pen, or something like that. So I understood at the time as it was coming out that these technologies with the styluses and with the I don't know, the written to text technology, where the conversion where you could write something and it convert, like
Yeah.
that was all really cool, and I appreciate those technologies, and I can see where people later on down the line, people younger than me, like would kind of shift and gravitate towards that because it was early on in their smartphone experience. But I think there's a large enough group of people, the people that were actually able to afford those devices, or people my age and older, who had that mental wiring similar to that, like I do, where it's like they gravitate towards other things when they think of, I need to take notes. And I have a feeling that that contributed to why those weren't as successful.
Did anyone else use Blackberries? First off, go ahead.
I just
Matthew.
have a very quick side note. So I looked over at my laptop and I saw that it's at 7:30 a.m. Obviously 7:30, and I
Obviously.
was like, okay, we're half an hour into this. That's great. And then we're talking and everything, and I'm not looking at it. I look back and it says 7:23. I'm like, hold on a second. I realized that the 7:30 came from the estimated time left on my battery. So we did not travel in time, everybody.
Dang
It's
it.
just,
I thought you were on, so I was like,
I'm a
hold on
retard.
minute.
That's all there is to it.
Well, it happens.
Yeah, I would have loved to have used a BlackBerry, but I haven't used a BlackBerry. The idea of a keyboard phone fascinates me far more than a stylus phone.
Mhm.
Now, granted, I haven't ever had like a resistive stylus on a phone, or like a very high tech, like what you would expect out of a stylus. I've only ever had the styluses
It was a tappy pen.
yeah, it was a little just like one of those things that you could find in the dollar store.
It was kind of like John
just
said,
in a very
it was-
small
its
form
purpose
factor.
was literally just to accurately click a thing on the screen,
Yeah.
not so much to do
But
extra stuff.
in the age of the phablet that we live in, where you can't really find a phone smaller than 6 inches, then it doesn't make too much of a difference, unless you have just like massive sausage fingers, and then you're screwed.
Yeah.
Which
I
but
will-
if your hands are that big, you might as well just get like a tablet at that point.
I will say I don't necessarily fall into that category like squarely, but I have fairly wide fingers. Yeah, typing on a BlackBerry keyboard it took some doing. It took some
I
getting used
believe
to.
it. I
Because
believe
I mean,
it.
we're talking like like it had a full QWERTY keyboard on a thing that was like, I had the curve, and I believe corner to corner it wasn't even 6 inches. It was something like 4.5, or
Oh, yeah.
like, and it was a little wider, than obviously than a flip phone, or even it was probably I would say that it's the width that like my S24, like of a standard kind of smartphone now.
Yeah.
It was just shorter. But yeah, it crammed a QWERTY keyboard like in a pretty small space, and so you really I had to use the tips of my finger. Like I had to cock my
you gotta grow out
my
your
phalanges
fingernails and like
yeah.
yeah. I've played around. Hand me down I got from Nathan was a Sony Ericsson, of like
Okay.
one of those flip out phones, and those are like tiny.
Mhm.
That's like a maybe 3-inch screen, and the keyboard is tiny too. I that's one of those side projects that's very sad to me, because once every couple of years I'll try to go back and install custom firmware on it, and it's still stuck in a boot loop. I can't get it out of the boot
Dang
loop,
it.
so I can't really use it. That's really sad. My idea was to have it set up so that I could use it as kind of like a dumb terminal. I could SSH into
Yeah.
machines and have just like this really cool little like
That
hacker
would be- yeah.
moment.
Have you tried percussive
there
magnet?
yet. Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite. Mom had was it like a Motorola Slide, or like Razor or something like that? One of the
Something like
classics.
that, yeah.
Like classics. Like this was an Android. This was
Yeah.
pre whatever that was.
Best flip phone ever made. Motorola
Mhm.
Razor. Changed my mind.
Oh, agreed, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She had one of those. So I got to like, help type text and stuff like that when we're driving and stuff. So I got to play around with that. But then again, this was also probably 15 years ago at least. So, my hands were a lot smaller back then.
Oh yeah.
It was a lot easier to manage.
What? No.
No,
Yep.
is that how that worked?
Yeah. The first smartphone that our mom got was a iPhone 6. Was it 6 Plus? Yeah. That was the
Yes.
first smartphone.
Because it was
Yeah.
what I had.
Oh yeah, but yeah, the 6 Plus, the one with the Ben Gate situation.
Yeah.
This was it the 6 Plus or the 6S Plus?
The 6 Plus was the one. So the
I think
6S was their revision after that, where
Okay.
they had because the 6 was the reason why it bent is
Oh,
they
yeah, yeah, I
removed too
remember this.
much.
I remember
I believe
this.
either it was aluminum at the time or magnesium, but on the frame,
Mhm.
the sides where they had the antennas, they removed too much material, and when you put it in your back pocket or really any pocket of that day and age, they found out it bent.
Mhm.
You want to talk about percussive maintenance there?
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I think it was
unintentional.
I think it was the 6 Plus because that's the same thing I had.
What was
Yeah.
And they just both of them they just never left their otter boxes.
what's
And then as soon
Which
as
is smart.
the next upgrade that she had after that was like an iPhone 11. If you can.
Oh, wow.
If
Yeah.
you
It was an
can
XR.
tell,
It was
that's
the
how
Well, no,
often
that's
mom.
it was the XR.
if I remember right,
Okay.
that was the time period. Yeah, no, people around the iPhone 6 era. Well, the 2, if I remember right,
6 and the 7, people hung on to for a long
I
time.
thought the 4 was also like
4
that.
they hung on a lot,
Because
but
the 4 was the last. It was the kind
But-
of the OG form
but
factor.
I remember correct. The 6 and the 7 were they the last ones that had the fingerprint reader on them, or
So
was it the
yeah.
8
it was
that had it?
8 had it. So it was
Okay.
the Face ID was introduced on the 10.
Yeah, I know that.
So
Yeah.
the candy bar, my personal favorite one was the iPhone 7
Mhm.
because it was basically it was the candy bar, not 7. It was the iPhone 5
Yeah,
because it was the candy bar, but it was taller.
okay, yeah,
That
yeah,
was
that's
the
when they.
best one-handed iPhone that ever
Yeah.
existed.
No, okay. So that's the form. So they call it the candy bar.
Basically,
That was the form factor. Okay, yeah. Those I remember those when they shifted from that to the next generation
and those things were tanks.
body style.
Yep.
People held on to those things forever.
Yeah.
The
Well,
one thing.
so part of the reason also they held on to it forever is that was also that they used that body was the first of the SE variants. So they
Yeah.
actually shoved like an iPhone 8 into that
Oh
body.
yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that. The one thing I really hope is that we continue down this path of reintroducing the flip phone. I was really tempted when I got this most recent phone. I was looking at the Razer smartphone, and I really wanted to get it, and I wanted it to be, but again, like I think I've mentioned it before. It's the camera situation.
Yeah.
Like it's not a flat. Motorola's flagship model, so it doesn't get the flagship cameras. And I'm not the biggest photographer in the world, but when I do want to take pictures, I want to try and take good pictures, and I like the multi-camera setup of having a fixed 3x, a fixed zoom, and then the fixed wide angle. Like I do like having that option. And I was like, I just can't at this time, but when I get a new phone, if there's a flip phone that like I've seen like the Samsung flips and some
Mhm.
stuff like that, like, I'm gonna be really tempted because I want to go back to that ergonomic, that era of hanging up on somebody.
They're getting there.
Yeah. But I hope that doesn't die. I hope that we keep, that it becomes a thing and it continues being a thing and they continue improving it. John, I think you mentioned before, like you get hung up on the crease, which I understand. Like,
Yes, of the foldable screens, it's not just the crease, it's just the feel of it as well. I can tell
yeah.
it's plasticky and your finger kind of gets hung up on it just a little bit. That's what drives me up the wall is like the current displays that we have on standard smartphones now are so good.
hmm
Moving to that, I'm expecting that level of quality and we're not there yet. And so until I can either mentally change my mindset of how I want to interact with my phone, because again, it's that touch feel performance for me. I have to touch it and make sure like, hey, this feels premium, the feel of it, actually using it, and then the performance, making sure it doesn't actually get in my way. All that matters to me a lot. And those phones, every time I touch it, it just feels like not cheap,
Mm.
but it kind of feels like a gimmick.
See, for me, I understand the appeal of the flips. I understand the appeal of the folds. I'm more with Matthew. I'd like to see something with an actual keyboard. Because my favorite phone was the Nokia E71, and it was one of Nokia's direct competitors to the BlackBerry. It was a bit thinner, so it was a one-hander, but it had a full QWERTY keyboard. Really well laid out. The software was really good. It had GPS. It had a headphone jack that when you plugged in your headphones, also you had an FM radio then, which was actually pretty good.
My phone still does that. just awesome.
It was nice.
I never use it, but it's fun to have that option.
The coolest feature, though, in my opinion, and this was in my opinion one of the peak Nokia, when Nokia was great, was on the back of it, right next to the camera, because it had a whopping 3.2 megapixel camera. But right next to that camera, it had a would it be convex, because the mirror is kind of bulbs out a bit.
Mm-hmm.
A convex mirror right next to the lens.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And so
those.
you could frame properly when using the main camera.
Oh God, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was a thing there for a bit where camera phones were coming with those. I had the worst phone I ever had, just bar none, the worst phone ever. Was the LG Shine, and it was a slidey phone.
Okay.
So it was still a T9 phone, but it slid up. And one of its selling points, I never used it for this, but I like the form factor of the slide. Was it had a um it had a mirror-ish reflective finish on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just a glossy screen, it actually had like a mirror-ish, and it was intended for selfies.
That sounds awful.
Or it was either intended as just literally being a mirror, or being like assisting in selfies where you could actually look at yourself and like see your reflection. It was implemented very poorly. It wasn't. I mean, it was reflective, but it wasn't like
just
a blurry
the
like,
reflection that you see on like the pipework for a urinal where it, like everything's super distorted.
Honestly, kind of, yeah, just flattened.
It's like a little like a hall of mirrors.
But really,
thing.
all they managed to do was just make a terrible phone that had issues and just it was bad.
Nice.
But
So you're definitely team flip phone.
I'm team flip phone. I do like because I guess
there's something satisfying about slamming it closed after a call.
Speaking of tactile, like just a feeling, like because that's something we talked about numerous times on numerous different topics of just the being nostalgic and looking back on things and having nostalgic feelings about certain technologies because of either quirks it had or just invoking a feeling, an emotion. And a lot of the stuff we have today just doesn't do that because it's real generic and bland and just meh.
Reject modernity, return to analog.
Right. But that's one of those things. It's like, you can still have all your modern features and all your modern stuff, but it can kind of bring back some of that that uniqueness and that nostalgic feeling.
3D Touch was one of the cool features that Apple created and then gave
abandoned.
up.
Yeah.
But like that's that kind of thing that it is still simulated feedback, but that feedback was awesome.
Yeah.
Like I remember I never owned an iPhone at this point, but I did get to play around with it. And I think Dad may have had an iPhone that did that. Somebody had a phone that did that, and I got to play around with it for a little bit, and it was just very, very smooth experience.
And why did they give up on that?
I think
people just didn't care.
Part
that
of it
much
was
about it?
Part of it was that people really didn't care about it. Cost of implementation, and then the developer adoption was like next to nothing.
Okay.
Apple was one of those. Apple has killed their fair share of products. They're nowhere near as lethal as Microsoft or Google, but they've killed their fair share. And that was definitely a 3D Touch was something. It was only popular for about 1 to 1.5 generations. For something like that, 'cause it was one of the things where it was really cool, and I had a couple phones that had it.
That was a better idea than liquid glass.
Agreed. I just forgot it was there. And so what they should have done is put a lot more of their marketing should have included it, and they really should have focused as that was a key feature.
Well, and to your point, Matt,
and they never really did.
If there was not a lot of developer adoption, not having it marketed by apps that you were downloading, just having that peripheral marketing too, not just Apple's, probably lended to.
Because like basically what it was treated as was it was kind of a right click for phones, which you could already do by just tap and hold. But it was tap and hold with like a tactile click to it.
Well, okay, no, correction.
Nice.
You actually had more than
pressure.
one. You actually could. They had it built in where you could go at least 2 levels down.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying is that it had more functionality than what was actually used, and so there is that. I think looking back, it would have been really cool if they kept it, and then I would be okay with liquid glass if for no other reason than when you delete an app, if you just hold down on it and then it shatters, and then like that would have been a fun little.
What if they had done
Fun
that,
little
but
thing.
it wasn't liquid glass; it was liquid gel. And
I
so,
think-
so. Like as you pushed it, squished it,
See, that would be fun too. They could have had a lot of fun with it.
Or like a
with
bubble.
being able to do that.
and like when you pushed it, like popped the bubble.
Would be okay with that too.
See, but y'all are saying Apple is fun, but Apple doesn't do fun anymore.
Could you imagine if they had if somebody had made like a bubble wrap simulating
Oh my
thing
god!
of
Well,
just like,
Okay, that's
Pop,
the thing. That's the
yeah.
thing is you have to remember like the early days of the iPhone.
man,
and all that-
I need to see if I can get my hands on one of these.
Boy,
3D
that
touch
would be
phones and
interesting,
Do that.
yeah.
Well, yeah, because there used to be an app where it was one of those where it had like the Zippo lighter, and then it had the simulated bubble wrap where you would just go through and
Back when
pop
apps
it.
meant something and they weren't just
when-
websites packaged
Yeah,
for the
when
App
app-
Store.
Where apps were fun. They
Yeah.
they were
Cheeky and fun.
they were new. They were this
They were
cool thing. People were being
Crammed
innovative
full
with it.
of
Yeah.
microtransactions.
Well, I mean, you still had the little pop-up ads in Fruit Ninja, but it wasn't that bad.
Angry Birds going from 99 cents for the app to 99 cents per in-app purchase was still a dumb thing.
Agreed.
We want to talk
I
about
know.
mobile phones. Don't get me started on the app stores and how trash they are.
Let's say, do you remember the time before the app stores where you had to go to the little proprietary website that it charged you first to go to the website? Because back then, Steven, you paid for your minutes and you paid for your texting. Then on top of that, if you accidentally opened the Explorer on the phone,
Mm-hmm.
that's an entire separate thing that was billed higher as well. So if you wanted to like typically go buy like your ringtones back on the day when people
Oh
did
yeah,
that,
now that I
and
remember.
backgrounds, but they also had games that you can go and buy.
Okay, yeah,
That's all pre app stores.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you not remember the days like when you accidentally hit the Explorer button and you panic because oh my god, it's gonna like
No, because I really didn't. I don't think I started. I just never had a need or a want or whatever to use the browser on a cell phone until until I got my first Samsung. Because I mean I know well no I think I used it on the Torch, so this would have been 2012. So before that, I mean I need to go online and do something. I have a laptop for that.
Yep.
I have a
you
desktop.
went
for
you
that.
went to the
You
computer.
went to the computer to
Yep.
do that. Like I had just it didn't.
I still go to
Didn't
my
click
computer
for
to
me.
do most stuff because
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
it on
me
a phone
too.
is just
Well,
for one, it feels wrong, and for two, the experience is usually lackluster.
yeah, it depends. Yeah, for me, it depends on the amount of like if it's a quick curiosity thing, no, I'll definitely go on my phone and do it.
Oh, like if I'm just searching
Yeah.
for something, that's fine.
If you're gonna spend just less than a few minutes looking at the page to get some information,
Yeah.
I'm fine with doing that on a phone. But if I'm gonna spend any amount of time on a website, no,
But I'm gonna be like Amazon, right?
Yep.
Like
Oh,
if I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
gonna
I'm gonna
quick
go-
search Amazon to see if something's available, sure,
Yeah.
I'll go there. But if I want to,
you're doing some some
Yeah.
window shopping.
I'm
or
gonna
some
go onto a
research or-
desktop where I can middle click and then open 300 tabs while I'm searching for what it is that I want to buy.
I am that person. I will hours on Amazon trying to find the one product that I want.
Mhm.
On
I'll
your
do-
phone
on my
or on the
phone.
desktop?
Yeah, because here's the thing.
Gross.
It all depends on
Gross.
how lazy I am at that time. If I'm on the couch and I'm like, oh, I need to go and research something, and I'm gonna take some time. It all depends on how in depth I want to research it. If I'm just like, yeah, I was gonna get through while I'm watching something, I'll do it on the phone. If I want to be a little more interactive, I'll grab the iPad. If like I actually want to be kind of serious, I'll get the laptop.
John actually has all the tiers. Of
Yeah,
all the
But if like I actually be like really, really productive, yeah, I'll go to the
My,
desk.
my
and I'll-
favorite part of this whole thing is this is assuming that there's one computer available and he has to get up and go to that
yeah,
computer.
he has to actually
If he's
choose
on the
which
couch-
computer.
If he's on the couch, he's got the computer there. If he's in here, he's got the computer here. If
But
he's in his
the
room,
desk has
it's-
multiple monitors.
like the idea
Yes.
that oh well, I would have to get up and go to my computer.
Uh-huh.
That's not a part of this equation.
And yet, still, the man doesn't have a computer in his bathroom. I just,
Just
I mean,
mount it.
I
if
have
you're
mount
gonna
it
go all the
inside
way,
the
go
tank.
all the way.
Mount it inside the tank,
There,
and then there's
there
your
is
water cooler.
there is a mini PC I could put in there. That you are correct. I just have.
I still
Get
say
you a VESA mount for the screen on the wall
No,
where
what-
it can fold out of the
so
way,
here's the-
and then
here-
you can pull it out
here's
in
the
front
thing-
of you.
no, here's
no,
the
no.
here's the
do
thing.
It, do
no.
it, mount it underneath the vanity, and then have a smart mirror. That
About
then
to say you're
swings
you're
out.
close. I was actually debating like actually getting the I think it's like the Raspberry Pi 5 and actually building a smart mirror one of these
Mhm.
days. Because like, yeah, it would be sick and actually incorporate that into Home Assistant, all that stuff. It would be neat. That's closer to what I would do, but no, I'm not just gonna put a computer in the bathroom just to have a
You
computer
have
in
one
the
in
bathroom.
every other room
I
of the
have
house.
a phone. It comes with me everywhere. This is a computer. It
Okay.
does what I need.
So speaking of
What's a computer?
speaking of desktops, at the time of recording, very recently they made the announcement that Android and Chrome are merging.
ChromeOS.
Chrome OS.
So what do we think is going to happen with this?
I think this was kind of a long time coming. As far as the features that they've been adding to Android. So like we kind of talked about earlier, the desktop features that they've been adding to Android for a long time. What I'm curious is how much separation there is on the OS side of things between Chrome OS and Android. I would assume that they're very close at this point if they can just not just snap their fingers, but with relative ease they can
Well,
merge the two.
it's a multi-year initiative that they're going to be going through this, which it is just to basically what it is. So they're going to be unifying Chrome OS and Android into a single cohesive platform. Chrome OS will be rebuilt as a interface on top of Android Core, leveraging features from Android 16 and beyond, such as desktop mode, multi-window support, Linux terminal access, and external display functionality to create a richer cross-device operating system. So again, it's really just to, from what I'm seeing, this is merge the development teams and just have a more streamlined platform of support. Because again, Google's having to support Android, they're having to support Chrome OS separately. Just functionality wise, they're very similar. Now I don't know, bottom layer, the kernel and how the differences may or may not be.
They use a modified Linux kernel
Okay, so then
for both.
yeah, let's say
So, yeah.
not completely dissimilar. So yeah, I mean multi-year, I would probably guess within 3 to 4, they'd probably have most of this completed.
I would think so because they've already got most of the features on either side. Like they've had Android app support in Chrome OS
For a
long
while.
time. And then they just rolled out the Linux support, like the
Well,
Linux
then-
terminal support with Android 16. So I'm curious to see how it plays out. I do think it's been a long time coming. I am excited for some of these features, and depending on how it shakes out here in the next few years, I might invest in pay more than $200 for a phone.
Well, then that was actually gonna say is like this may be interesting because like, are we actually gonna get a good Chrome laptop now?
So funny you should say that. I was just in a Best Buy not that long ago, and they had some Chrome laptops set up, and one of them was a $700 one. I think it was a Lenovo.
Yeah, that's been a thing for a while.
And
where it's like, why would I spend $700 on that when I can get like a Windows laptop for that, and they're very similar.
I could buy a used like business Dell or
Yeah,
but
Lenovo
my-
for like $300.
Yeah, but sorry, continue.
The point I'm getting at though is that I've only ever touched like the $200-300 Samsung student, basically the student books,
The
or
ones that they hand out like candy at
that the ones
Yeah,
that,
the
or
elementary
like you can
school.
find like on
Yeah.
clearance all the time at Walmart and that kind of thing. So I hadn't played around with one of the more expensive ones, and oh my word, that was so much better than what any time I've ever touched a Chromebook before. So I agree. I 100% agree that as it stands right now, $700 for a Chromebook, it's a bit much. But if you can get that, but if I could find that kind of performance in say a $400 in a brand new $400 laptop, okay, that's that. Now we're getting somewhere. I would honestly even go depending on a few other things. I could even just see like $500, depending on what else you can do with it. But I am fascinated to see what happens here, also because the iPad OS is getting
Yep.
many more desktop features this go around.
Well, because that's what I was gonna say is like this is a more direct answer to what Apple is kind of doing, because Apple has been for years slowly like merging that line of their mobile OS versus their standard like Mac OS
Yes.
that they've pushed out for years. And again, that's the whole thing of where they're trying not to cannibalize their own product, but you're getting really close to why would somebody buy a Mac Mini when you can buy an iPad with a dock and plug that into a monitor that essentially underneath has the exact same chip, and then you just have a dock with more IO on it, and there you go. It's the same thing.
Well, I have a curiosity and I have a question, or I have a question and then I have a follow up thought on it. So do y'all know? I did a quick little search, can't find a definitive answer, but do y'all know if right now, whether it's on a Chromebook or just in general, Google Workspace, Doc Sheets, whatever the other, is there a true blue locally installed version of those? Or because from what I'm seeing, it's mostly just there's
No,
a PWA version, like
Yeah,
it's
they're all cloud on.
yeah.
I would
So
think
they-
that since they do Android app support, there are apps
well, that's from what it
that you
sounds
could run
like.
locally.
Yeah, there is, but it's basically just a shortcut to
Yeah,
to a web page.
So you can-
they're UWPs.
You can run the application. I haven't done it in a
UWP
while.
is a Windows thing. If they're
Well, yeah.
PWAs, progressive web
PWA, sorry,
applications,
thank you.
you still can
You
use
can run
that
them offline
locally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I know this because for my capstone, I just created a PWA. So you have to have a connection to the server that it's being
cloud,
distributed
yeah.
from initially to get to download the app in
Mhm.
quotation marks, if you will. But then once you have everything cached locally, you can use it offline.
But it's not an independently running x86, just like full blown
Well, no,
independent application.
The only difference between it and your average application these days is it is not packaged in a standalone format. Because, like,
Correct.
for example, Teams, right? Spotify, Slack, all of these are Electron apps. It's basically a progressive web app.
Mhm.
It is a web app running locally because they've packaged it to do so. What progressive web apps do is it removes that barrier of distribution because you don't need to package it separately.
Okay.
You can just distribute it through the browser. It's still used through the browser, but you can the browsers have some UI to where it doesn't you don't have to have it open in a tab specifically, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You can make it look more like a
Like just
Electron app.
independent window.
Yeah.
So my question is, with the advent of this merger, this progressive merger of having Android and Chrome OS be one and the same, do you think that once that's the case, do you think Google might go so far as to create a independent, standalone, locally installed version of their business apps to
I mean,
compete? Because this
It
sounds like
depends
it
on
would
if you
be
think
a
the
format.
Android ones are standalone, independent, or not.
So are you asking will you have full feature like now? And obviously, I'm not talking about
I'm
sharing.
definitely-
I'm not talking sharing features, obviously, but like you working on a document, whatever the document has to be. If you're asking, will there be full feature set to do work that offline? I think they have to if they don't. And I think they actually already do. But if they don't already, I think they're going to have to.
Because this just sounds to me, in reading the article and kind of seeing, kind of my interpretation of what it looks like they're going for here, it seems to me that whether this is the intention at the moment or not, it's being more of a direct competitor, having something that's more of a direct competitor with Mac OS and Windows, and having that not ecosystem, but that format, and having Google's version of it, and then it would also get them to the point of having a platform to create that and compete directly with Microsoft, because obviously Microsoft apps have a cloud version, but it's, as we all know, they have the cloud version and then they have the locally installed version.
Now, I don't
and
think
those
that-
are not the same. The
Correct.
cloud is a watered down version of the locally installed.
Yes.
And so,
Well,
so that's just my curiosity.
Not a watered
is-
down. They are a fully separate version because that's where this is Microsoft's nomenclature here. So like the versions of what you're talking about, the old, like what you would have grabbed from an MSI, it's a standard executable that you launch and run. Those are Microsoft's classic apps. They're newer modern versions that you run in the cloud that you have technically the mobile versions that you can get from Microsoft Store and stuff. Those are all UWPs. Those are essentially a similar option of what they have here, where it's technically a web browser running in the background.
When I'm saying watered down, I strictly mean feature set.
Yes, correct.
I understand that they're
from feature
different.
set.
I get
I would
that. I'm
think
not
that-
talking about
Now,
that.
granted, I could be missing out on some functionality here, but I would think that as far as a offline local Google Suite would look like. You wouldn't get the sync features if you're offline.
Sharing.
It's not going to
The
sync.
sharing
yeah,
feature,
yeah.
It's
No,
not going. You're not going to be able to live edit
But I'm
with multiple
curious
people.
whether they would do that intentionally to have, because I guess what you would gain with that is obviously my understanding between the cloud version of Microsoft apps and Google's app suite, they are pretty similar as far as feature set, the things you can do with them. And then Microsoft's locally installed versions of their apps are more robust because they're the locally installed version. They have more features than this is where I say watered down
I don't
versions.
think I do
No,
not.
Excel is absolutely one of those.
Okay, well, no. What I'm saying is, from a Google perspective, I don't think you're going to get to the point where you go to Google and you download Sheets. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Okay, and that's what I'm
So
curious about,
for-
because I feel like with this is an opportunity to where they could expand Sheets to be a direct competitor with Excel by having a locally installed version of it. I don't know. That's just that's where my mind went.
If you need Betty in HR to have like an icon that she can click on, and it
You know
runs
good and well
offline
that is a
seamlessly,
selling point.
then then that maybe. So I googled it. I put a support article in the chat, and we can include it in the show notes if we want to. But basically, the current G Suite is PWAs, and they can run offline.
They can run offline. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't
know. That's just
Yeah,
that's kind of where
But you
my
also
mind
you
went
also have
when
to
I
go
was-
from the business perspective from their end, from Google's and Microsoft's perspective. They want you always online
True.
for literally everything, because again, they want you using their platform, buying their subscriptions, things of that nature. But they also want to be harvesting your data. If you are not online, they're not constantly accessing
Especially
your data.
with Copilot and Gemini and
And
all
all-
that stuff.
and all
You're
those
not going to get
integrations and
those
stuff.
features if you're offline.
Correct.
I
How dare you.
don't see Google creating a Sheets Plus
Mm-hmm.
that
Okay.
only runs local. I can't see them doing that.
Okay, fair enough.
I can see them improving Sheets to where they don't need to.
And that's as I was talking, I was kind of, that thought crossed my mind as well, where with this new OS, it could also bring about they could just add those features into Sheets itself, and then you either have the horsepower to run it or you don't.
Yeah.
You're using one of the new Chromebooks with the new ChromeOS that has the horsepower and the features to do it, or you're using an old one and it's just like, sorry bro, you're on the old thing, can't do all the things.
Most likely.
Well, on that note, Stephen, close us out.
I guess I can if you want me to.
I would like you to.
Okay.
Could you?
Well, if you insist.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the Hostility in the Morning podcast. If you stayed this long and like what you heard, leave a comment and let us know. You can also hit us up on X, Facebook, Instagram, or info@hostilityinthemorning.com. We upload every other Tuesday real early on Substack, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. If you want a one-stop shop for everything hostile, you can find everything at hostilityinthemorning.com. And remember, have a hostile morning.